countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's now time for another heaping helping of cheese and quackers here on the Last Comic Shop podcast.
That's right. Round up your rubber duckies and other things.
So yeah, we're gonna go through some things for people that remember back in the days when anthropomorphic animals were cool and they can say the words anthropomorphic.
That's true. Although I think, but really, there's only one. I mean, I guess they talk about it, a world of more of them, but really, there's one guy, one dude. It's Howard the Duck this week on the Last Comic Shop podcast. I'm the host, Danny Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and Jay Scott and the wonderful Mikey Wood, who's joining us for this week's entry into the movie Mayhem 2026. That's right. Those folks that have not been listening to any of our previous years where we get into May and we start doing this event, it's comic books, it is movies. And the movies are based on the comic books. And so this week we're doing Howard the Duck.
We're running out of movies.
We are not. There were tons that we could have picked. This is my pick. For,
so picking Howard the Duck then was, you actually made...
I made a conscious...
Was a conscious decision.
I had never seen the movie. It is a secret shame of mine. Up until this week's recording, I had never seen Howard the Duck. I was one of these people that drank the Kool-Aid and that, it was just terrible. And why should I waste my time in watching it if it's one of the worst movies ever made? Spoiler alert, it's not one of the worst movies ever made. I saw Punisher Warzone just a couple months ago, and that was a terrible movie. At least this one was charming in some aspects. But we'll get to that in the second half of today's show when we do the Howard the Duck movie from 1986. But we're going to start off with the original Howard the Duck comic books that appeared in Marvel in the 70s, done by Steve Gerber. It's the first 8 issues of that particular run of Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck did appear in comic books before this self-titled series. So real quickly, Chad, who worked on these particular books with Steve Gerber?
Yes, so we're going all the way back to 1975 for these. So Steve Gerber was the consistent writer. Steve Leialoha was the inker / embellisher for all of these issues. But you get a murderer's row of great artists from the 70s. Frank Brunner does issues 1 and 2. John Buscema does issue 3. And then for issues 4 through 8, they bring on Gene Colan.
Yeah, I was in absolute heaven. I won't lie. Anybody that listens to this show a lot knows I'm a Bronze Age baby. I love me some Bronze Age comics. And boy, howdy, this again was, to Chad's point, a murderer's row of some of my favorites. Gene Colan, Frank Brunner, John Buscema. You might as well have thrown in Sal in there and P. Craig Russell, Michael Golden, and just done them all because those guys, I love them all. But let's get the 10-cent synopsis for these 8 issues from Mikey Wood. Now, he's really good at this.
Nice little thin dime. So it's about a duck named Howard. So it's a cigar chomping pantsless duck from another dimension going on a cross-country journey with a former nude model named Beverly. And they're dropped in the center of the wacky side of the Marvel universe. That's about it.
Very, very importantly, the first couple of issues all take place in Cleveland.
They do.
Where the river catches on fire in the comic book. It also happens in real life, but in the comic book.
I'm sure there's some form of commentary going on there, but I guess my brain wasn't thinking social commentary because I didn't pick up on it. I just thought this is wacky and delightfully bonkers.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. There is a lot of social commentary going on here. There's a lot of commentary on comic books. It was in some ways a true satire. I don't want to use the term parody because parody sometimes is comedy for comedy's sake. I really think that Steve Gerber was trying to satire a lot of the traditional tropes that were very prevalent around Marvel comic books in the 1970s. The first issue is an homage to the Conan the Barbarian sword-swinging stories, including, an accountant turned wizard and a tower made of paper. And Spider-Man shows up for, again, I even think that's a satire, is the fact that he just couldn't get away from having an issue of any sort of series without throwing in a guest star, especially Spider-Man, just for a thing. And he shows up for like a couple panels and does barely anything, which is hilarious in my opinion.
He saves the day. And he's, that big guest star, he's going to make that paper.
From there, you get the next issue, which is all kind of a satire of supervillains with the space turnip.
Man,
which I thought was kind of clever. From there, it's a satire of all the martial arts comic books that Marvel was putting out at the time. Later on, you get gothic horror, which is hilarious because this one girl makes a gingerbread Frankenstein, which I thought was kind of cool. And by the end, it's a satire of the political atmosphere prevalent in the 1970s.
Yeah, Manchurian Candidate stuff.
Howard the Duck runs for president. But that's Steve Gerber for you. Like, Steve Gerber never wrote anything that was normal in terms of comic books. Like, he was usually trying to weave in some sort of commentary on something else, whether you read his Man Thing, whether you read his Defenders stuff, there's always something weird going on. But we're going to start our conversation today with Chad. Now, Chad, I mean, at least like the Chip Zdarsky run of Howard the Duck. Did you ever read any of these original ones?
So the original run, I had not. I just picked up the Zdarsky stuff on a lark because I had recognized his name and had Joe Quinones on art, and he's always a treat. But no, so I was unfamiliar with these. I'd picked up an issue or two every now and again. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first couple issues where it seemed like each issue was a done-in-one satire of a different genre of comics. It's almost like Planetary, but the 1970s version, and a little bit more biting. And I thought that was really fun. And then whenever it gets to the Howard the Duck runs for president story, I felt like that one dragged on a little bit. But I love the interactions with him and Bev. And like you mentioned earlier with the artists, each artist in there was a treat. The villains were absolutely ridiculous. Like, oh, there's the evil accountant. Oh, there's the evil turnip guy. And then Quack Fu, you get the sensei in there. Every issue was a fun send-up. It was, a little bit of Marvel Comics crossed with Mad Magazine, crossed with stories that were coherent and made sense and were entertaining.
Now, Chad, do you think that the original Howard the Duck sans underpants is better than the Disney-imposed Howard the Duck with underpants? Because Disney in the 70s
real pants.
Sued Marvel, and the agreement they came to is Howard the Duck would be allowed to be published, but they had to put some pants on him so as to not confuse the readers to think that Howard the Duck was Donald Duck. Not that anyone would ever think that, because Donald Duck is like the uncoolest motherfucker on this planet.
What? I will fight you on that one.
True.
Bring it, because I've got Daffy in my corner here.
Donald Duck has anger management issues.
Yeah. You PTSD.
Oh man,
he spent all that time in the Navy. Yeah.
Right. He's seen shit.
I'm glad that we're talking about this because, to be honest, once they redesigned Howard to make him look less like Donald Duck, is kind of when I stopped liking Howard the Duck. Like, because I'm kind of with the rest of the guys. I kind of like Donald. I like the Carl Barks Donald Duck comic books. Howard's like one step more adult. Like, it's like you took Donald and you paired him with like a really hot blonde and let them run wild in the Marvel universe. That's the charm.
Sexualized it a little bit, yeah.
That's the charm of what it is, yeah.
And I will say, when they first did the first redesigns, it was bad. It was bad. I don't mind the more modern versions, like the stuff you'll see in the What If cartoons and, like the post-Zdarsky stuff. Like, I think they found a groove for Howard the Duck. But initially, when they came back with it was just no bueno.
But other than the pants design, J.A., your thoughts on these 8 issues of Howard the Duck?
I mean, I enjoy a good parody, and this is what that was. Some issues were better than others. I thought I did like that each issue was very self-contained. I mean, there were some threads that continued from issue to issue, but it was a fun romp down Bronze Age memory lane for Marvel. And oftentimes, Bronze Age books can be a bit of a heavy lift, a bit of a chore, especially because you make us read so many of them. And this was not. Maybe it was because we were only reading 8 of them. Maybe it was because it wasn't quite so heavily packed with prose. I don't know. But it was a quick read. It was a fun read. And the whole shtick of Howard the Duck is that the joke is that there is no joke. It's just existential.
Yes.
Existential.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Mikey.
That was beautiful.
Now, I want to throw it to Mikey because sometimes he has come on the show and he's been a little bit more critical of Silver Age, Bronze Age, explaining too much, not letting art breathe, being a little bit too wordy.
Well, it's funny because there's something about the Bronze Age, especially Bronze Age Marvel stuff, that just doesn't land with me, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's some kind of an unconscious bias or something, but they just never land with me. Real quick, my interesting history with Howard the Duck is that this is the first time I've ever read any of these except for issue number 5, which was the Arena of Death or Arena of Doom one with
the wrestler one or the wizard?
It's the wrestler one.
Yeah,
okay.
the wrestling one.
That's the best
For some
one.
reason,
That's the best one of the 8.
5. Yeah, and I had issue 5 for some reason. I'm not sure how I got it. I got it maybe a pile at a flea market or something like that. And when I was a kid, when I was like 12, 13 years old, I kept finding it in like 50-cent boxes. And I would keep buying it. So I had this stack of Howard the Duck 5. I had like 20 of them. And then, that one issue of Howard the Duck number 5, I just had it. Every time I saw it, I thought it was hilarious because it's like the only one I would ever see. So this gave me a chance to kind of read all the other ones. And that's what a lot of people reading these things for the first time have to do. They have to take a step back to 1976, 75 or whenever and think about what was around at the time. And this was a fairly unique kind of thing for mainstream, specifically comics. I'd have to think that it had something to do with the later creation of Cerebus, maybe. And because the first issue reads very Cerebus. Or I should say it the other way around. The early Cerebus issues read very much like those early Howard the Duck.
Yes.
I never put 2 and 2 together because I hadn't read Howard the Duck, but like so it's got that vibe to it. And later on, like you would see Boris the Bear would come out and like the Ninja Turtles would come out, like an animal. I don't know if this gave birth to that animal thing in the early 80s that we got. Maybe it did. Maybe it was behind that. But I know that Howard the Duck was very, very popular for like a hot minute and then just kind of died out. But these were fun. Like they read like complete bonkers nonsense, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up issue 5 though, because that's kind of like the day in the life of Howard. Unlike some of the other ones, which this is the fantasy, this is the superheroes, this is the horror. I like how he shows up at the television station and like they think he's like part of the one act, and he fights the clown, and then later on by the end of the issue he's fighting. So it's kind of more of a satire on, like, I guess, the expectations of an anthropomorphic character. You should be like the humor or the comic relief. And I love how Howard always is like, no, dude, I'm like a totally normal dude. And like, for me to be looked at as a clown or something hilarious, like that's not my shtick. Like, I'm just a guy.
Yeah. See, does he mention Duck World? I never picked up on any of the Duck World stuff. It was just, you don't know where he came from. You just know that he's here and he's cranky about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know his debut issue was in that Marvel magazine, and he is just a traveler from other dimensions with all of these other travelers.
That's true.
And they're hunting somebody down. I can't remember. They're hunting some warlord down, and he basically falls off whatever the path is that's carrying him. He ends up in the nexus of all realities, doesn't he?
He does. It's a man thing.
Swamp Thing. Ooh. The other walking vegetable.
The other curious thing about this particular book is that this was during the part of comics where creators were fighting for rights for their own creations, and definitely Steve Gerber was very, very keen on keeping Howard the Duck. And it's one of those characters that even with the Chip Zdarsky stuff, which I read later on, like I don't think anybody really got Howard the Duck like Steve Gerber got Howard the Duck. There's a lot of other characters that could fall to other creators, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, whatever. And I think that's why eventually the series fell out of favor and what is because, again, Steve Gerber, for various reasons, pretty much stopped writing it. But it's really neat to go back to these original issues where like just the ideas are just, they're flowing like water. Like there's one issue where they're talking about the horror and he goes to the house and it ends with a cliffhanger like, oh no, here's the gingerbread monster, to be continued the next issue. And that story is wrapped up within like 3 panels. They're like, no, we're done with this. Screw this. Now he's running for president. We're done with this story. The ideas were just coming so fast and furious from Steve Gerber.
Like, how much cocaine was Steve Gerber on? Like, I really have to. Like, really? I mean, we don't. Is Steve Gerber still with? Yes.
No,
he passed, didn't he?
He passed away. He's yeah.
I would be interested, just because my historical knowledge is not as keen as I'd like it to be, to know more of what was going on at the time. Because, like Mikey alluded to, this was the book that felt like it had the finger on the pulse, and this was like what the cool kids were reading, because you had, even the Howard the Duck runs for president campaign, the put on all the buttons. But this was the thing that was tapping into the zeitgeist at the time, because this is what the bicentennial,
Yeah, it was popular enough to get its own newspaper strip. There was a Howard the Duck newspaper strip, which, again, there were other characters that had them at the time. Spider-Man, Conan the Barbarian had one. Like, there were characters from Marvel but Howard the Duck specifically had a newspaper strip, which and they didn't give them to everybody. No, and so, the fact that, Howard the Duck, right out of the gates, within, the first year or so, already has its strip.
I think it's because he looked like Donald Duck.
That's what I was curious about.
Donald Duck.
Is it because he looks like a cartoon character that
even back then, it was cool to dunk on Disney.
It's always been cool to dunk on Disney.
Yeah, I know.
Now, I think Steve Gerber, he was selling those buttons basically out of his house. He's like, mail me $1 and I'll send you a button.
Yeah.
Make the check out to me. I'm surprised Marvel let him do that stuff.
Right.
But the guerrilla marketing.
Marvel needed to let him do that stuff because they weren't paying him anything.
Right. That's true. Well, this was during the time in which Archie Goodwin was the editor-in-chief at Marvel. And the interesting thing about that is Archie was a really great writer, really great editor, not really a guy for deadlines and things like that. He did let a lot of folks do their own thing. This was about the same time that Jim Starlin was doing all his cosmic stuff, and Steve Englehart was doing his own thing over here. It's almost like they had fiefdoms within Marvel. With their own books and these own titles. But that's also why you had books that were late all the time and fill-in issues that made no sense on Avengers. And it took Jim Shooter coming in to kind of wrangle all of that together. But no, this was interesting times for Marvel.
And this was kind of an unusual type of book for them. I mean, they've always sort of poked fun at themselves. I don't know, this kind of read very independent to me versus what was coming out at the time. And I don't know what Gerber had done Man-Thing and stuff before then, but was he huge at the time? Because I feel like they just kind of said, go for it, and just let him do whatever the hell he wanted to do,
Yeah, he was one of the hot writers.
Oh, okay.
When he jumped on Howard, he had already had some stints again on Defenders, on Man-Thing. He was a hot up and coming writer. And so but this was them giving the keys to the kingdom and his own created project, because Man-Thing was a pre-existing title before he showed up. Defenders was a pre-existing title. This was really his baby. And that's why, again, he was so defensive about it. That and the Destroyer Duck stuff. We didn't even talk about the Destroyer Duck stuff. But in any case, we're not going to go into that. We're going to get into ratings because we have a movie to review. And so we're going to get a rating scale from J. Scott for the first 8 issues of the Steve Gerber run of Howard the Duck. What do we got?
1 out of 4 hairless apes.
That's the thing. I kept on thinking to myself, what voice does he have? Whose voice is it? Because as we'll get later into the movie, that was my one thing I didn't like, is I thought the voice was not what I expected Howard the Duck's voice to be.
Well,
I'm thinking,
what voice did you expect it to be?
Rougher voice? I think of the Groucho Marx, but I was
the movie Howard the Duck is definitely nicer than the comic book.
Yeah.
Howard the Duck.
Yeah,
The comic
he was
book
not
is much
as
more of a
grouchy.
grumpy.
I think Howard in the comics is like he's an old Jewish man. Like he's got that Shecky Green kind of borscht belt comedian kind of vibe to him. He's always chewing on a cigar. He's always got he's just this guy.
Well, we've got the hairless apes. We're going to start off with Chad. I was curious about Chad's reaction to these particular issues, and what did you end up rating it?
So this one, the stuff that I enjoyed, I really enjoyed. The first 3 issues I thought were bangers. The issue 5, I just kept seeing Spider-Man's origin where he goes up against the wrestler.
Yeah,
like that was fun. And I like the sleepy wizard guy. All of that was good. And then as we got towards the tail end, and like I alluded to earlier, the political stuff, the Manchurian Candidate started to lose me a little bit. And I don't know whether it was just I needed more historical context to appreciate it or what. My mind was starting to wander whenever I got to those issues 7 and 8. And it's tough because you want to have that context. You want to have that background. So I'm going to say a 2.75 for me personally, where the stuff that landed I really enjoyed, but then, by the time I get to issue 7, I might be done with Howard the Duck now. I've had enough. Ready to move on.
All right. J.A.
I enjoyed it. I really did. It was what I needed this week. A bit of levity and parody and satire. So it's a 3 for me. It's fun. And we read it in basically single issue form. But I was heartened to find that you can get this in both paperback in trade and in a Marvel Masterworks collection, which, by the way, Volume 1 of the Howard the Duck Marvel Masterworks was the 300th Marvel Masterworks.
Wow.
So for the 300th Marvel Masterwork, they put out Howard the Duck, which tells you everything you need to know.
I was curious before we get too far, though. What did you think about the Conan issue? I mean, you're the big Conan fan on this.
It was the perfect entry. I was loving it. From the wizard who was pro Rata to Beverly to the fact that it was taking place in Cleveland and they set the river on fire again. I loved it.
Oh, Lordy. Mikey.
I'm kind of leaning like the Chad direction on this one. Like, the shtick kind of wore thin. I did like how surreal and sort of bonkers it was. Like that first issue with the castle made out of credit cards and things like that. That was pretty funny. And see, this is where I need you guys. I didn't see Spider-Man's appearance as a parody of Spider-Man appearing in books. I just thought it was Marvel doing what Marvel does. It's like when the Fantastic Four was in Shogun Warriors. No.
But couldn't it be both?
Right. Maybe it was both because those characters sell books. Like they Transformers sales weren't going well, so Spider-Man's in the 3rd issue of Transformers for some reason. But yeah, so I'm kind of like a 2. Like it was fun. It was certainly fun. I think the character is a fun character that you could probably. I'm curious to see what other writers did with him because he could be a fun character to mess around with. So.
Oh yeah, no, the Zdarsky stuff is definitely not genre fiction. Per se, as much. Well, I guess it's like noir, like he's a detective, like those kinds of stories, like a down on his luck detective trying to make the rent.
Well, I some people may think that I'm going to give this a 4. I'm not. Again, I really do love Howard the Duck and this particular series from the 1970s. Not only does it have some of my favorite artists. My particular favorite issues are the Gene Colan issues, just because, boy howdy, does he draw a beautiful Beverly. Not to say that Frank Brunner and John Buscema don't, but that last scene at the end of issue 8 where they're sitting in the hot tub, I'm just like, well, that would sink my presidential campaign for sure, too. But the thing is, I like this series a lot because I'm also a fan of a lot of the other stuff that was coming out in the Bronze Age at the same time. This is a parody of a lot of the stuff that you would get in the Marvel magazines, especially, again, where they could be a little more risque with their subject matter, with more kind of adult stories. And so Howard is kind of like, no, we could put this stuff in a comic book too, you know. We can kind of put this biting satire, kind of this sexy wink, wink, nod, nod stuff in our comic books and play around with it. And I think that's awesome. And to Mikey's point, I totally agree that later on, when you get things like Cerebus and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff, Steve Gerber paved the way in some ways with the Howard the Duck series. I would highly recommend that you continue to read the series later on. We didn't even get into some of the best stuff like Dr. Bong. Yeah, there's a great issue later on where Howard the Duck turns into a human and you actually get to see what he looks like had he been a human, which is a pretty hilarious issue. To its detriment, a lot of these issues kind of ran together. I think they're best read one at a time. I'll give it a 3. I'm going to give it a solid 3. I think that a lot of folks should read it. Pick one of the issues. Pick the Conan issue. Pick the one where he fights the pro wrestler. Pick the one where he runs for president. Just read the one issue and just move on with your day. In any case, we're moving on with the rest of our show. We've got the movie review of Howard the Duck coming up right after this commercial break. So stay tuned for more of The Last Comic Shop right after this.
Looking to save money on your collectible supplies? Whether it's comics, cards, sports memorabilia, or miscellaneous pop culture bric-a-brac, make sure to use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off your orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get you a discount on BCW's already low prices, but using LCSPOD at checkout is an amazing way to show support to the Last Comic Shop podcast, the most incredible comic book podcast on the airwaves. So if you are in need of collectible supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's promo code LCSPOD. Cheers!
From Fantagraphics, the Santo Sisters Volume 1 hardcover collection. Compiling issues 1 to 5 of the hit indie comic book series. Join Amber and Alana, two ordinary girls with extraordinary powers, as they fight crime, date dumb guys, and try to stay sane in a world full of assassins, zombies, crazy ex-girlfriends, and more. A mix of Archie comics meet Love and Rockets, with a healthy dose of kick-ass action. Order your copy today.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time to put the movie into movie mayhem. That's right. We're going all the way back to the year 1986 for the Howard the Duck movie. And a friendly reminder, today's movie review is brought to you by bcwsupplies.com. That's right. Go to BCW Supplies for all your comic book or trading card collecting needs and use promo code LCSPOD at your checkout for 10% off. That's bcwsupplies.com, LCSPOD. But let's get into the Howard the Duck action. And Mr. J.A., you are the person who's going to tell us about all the other people involved in this process. So who was involved in the creation of this version of Howard?
Yes, Howard the Duck, the movie, was directed by Willard Huyck, written by Huyck and his wife, Gloria Katz. They are the screenwriting duo that also produced Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Ooh. And American Graffiti, among other things. The reason why they got this is because this is a Lucasfilm production, as shown by that opening establishing shot in Duck World, which you think might be New York City until you see the twin moons. Little call back to Tatooine there in Star Wars. The award-winning film, it was nominated for 7 Golden Raspberries, winning 4. Grossed $16.3 million against a $37 million budget. Starred Ed Gale as the suit performer for Howard the Duck, with Chip Zien providing the voice. Leah Thompson got top billing as Beverly Switzler. Tim Robbins, Jeffrey Jones from Ferris Bueller's Day Off fame, played both the scientist and then became kind of the inhabited zombie bad guy thing. Paul Guilfoyle was the cop. Liz Segal, the younger sister of Katie Segal, played one of the band members.
Peggy Bundy. Don't forget about Holly Robinson Pete as the other band.
Yes, Holly Robinson Pete also was in it, and uncredited, but an extra that you can sometimes see in, I think he's in the last scene at the concert, Pat Smear, pre-Nirvana. He was also an extra in Blade Runner.
I think Pat Smear was with the Germs at the time.
Or was it right after his Germs run, I think?
Interesting.
He was germ-free.
There you go. I don't know anything about these germs. That may or may not be for the best.
Good night, everybody.
No. You're on the hook for yet another 10-cent synopsis, sir. So what happens in Howard the Duck, the movie?
This is Talking Duck, who does wear pants in this one. So Howard is zapped from Duck World to planet Earth and needs to find a way home and gets into wacky hijinks along the way. That is really about it.
Yes, I agree.
that is literally about it. Yeah.
There's some other stuff. Crab monsters.
Hit us with your crab monsters.
That's for the $1.50 synopsis. The 10
All
cent
right,
synopsis
I will expound. There's
your dark Lords, which they didn't say the V.
There are some major differences between the comic book and the movie. I mean, again, they established the duck world. There's actually the beginning of the movie is very much, I think, the closest we got to kind of the spirit of the Steve Gerber series, with all these shots of Duck World, and he's looking at a Playboy with a duck centerfold, and
the play duck. I was surprised at that.
Lots of duck tits.
Yeah. Full duckle nudity.
Don't start this, or Jay's going to bring up the corkscrew, and we're going to be going down a rap. No,
lots of duck breasts.
I was saying that was the closest we got to some of the parody that we would got from Steve Gerber. Although as I pointed out, Steve Gerber was more about satire, which I do think there's a big difference between satire and parody. But from there, Leah Thompson's character, the Bev in this particular, she's a rock star, which again, it was popular in the 80s, but she's
Josie and the Pussycats.
Steve Gerber said that Leah Thompson did a really good job in this movie, but it wasn't his Beverly.
Right. She did a good job with what they gave her, which was part Madonna, part Bangles lady.
But then they bring in, again, the Dark Overlords. Actually, that wasn't bad either, because they talked about that stuff. That's like that nexus of all realities. That kind of goes into the roots of the Howard the Duck character. But then, he starts riding around in a little go-kart with a laser gun, and he was riding on an ultralight.
I had never seen one of those before in my life. Was that a thing in the 80s?
They were very popular. I mean, you were really cool if you had an ultralight.
People flew?
Looks dangerous as hell.
Yeah. It's a go-kart with wings is what it is. It's got a lawnmower motor. Yeah.
And Tim Robbins chews scenery like nobody else. But you would think that I would hate this movie. You would thought that I would have hated this movie because it's so different from the comic book.
No, but you also love bad, cheesy movies, so it's
it's true. You know what I can say about this particular movie, and it to its credit, and I think Chad has been on record a lot of times when we've talked about some of the other movies. I think he mentioned this when we did Punisher Warzone, and he was like, sometimes I just want like some action schlock coming out of like a comic book movie. I think that's the same thing with the Howard the Duck. For as much as this movie gets crapped upon, it at least was original. It wasn't cookie cutter. It was different. It was somebody's vision. And the effects were really good for 1986. I mean, this was Lucasfilm, man. Howard looks good. It doesn't look like it's all practical effects too, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning, I'll give you the beginning, and everything on Duck World was original and interesting, and it was fascinating to see sort of the satire and the play on our world, but translated to ducks, even if there was a lot of duck breast, copious amounts of duck breast.
Which are delicious, by the way.
I thought then it became less interesting when he landed in Cleveland, and it was more a standard fish out of water story. They didn't play enough with the fact that he was a duck, I felt. Halfway through the movie, people just accepted him as a duck, walking and talking as a duck. And then it was sort of this action movie, part Blues Brothers with the cops chasing them, Ghostbusters, part
E.T. I saw some E.T. homages.
Lots of different movie genres mixed in that were all unoriginal, and together they didn't form an original story. They just felt like pastiches of the other ones.
It's funny. 13-year-old Mikey watched this and thought it was hilarious, and I actually own it on DVD. Why? Because something that we haven't mentioned, this is the first Marvel film short of a Captain America
Serial.
Yeah. But this is actually the beginnings, the awkward, clumsy beginnings of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm sorry, it's part of the timeline. Okay, they need to accept it. So yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little more of Duck World. Like, I would have liked to have seen him established as something so that you care about the people that are around him and you see why he wants to go home so much. Because I'm sorry, if you dropped me onto Earth and I landed in Leah Thompson's bed in 1986, I would not want to go home. I would want to stay there. Yeah, no, but like
a very welcoming Leah Thompson, by the way.
Right? Yes. Like, but I mean, her character was sweet. Tim Robbins, this was like one of his first gigs, and he was over the top and awesome and bonkers. It looks like they had fun making it. They probably knew they were making a different kind of bird, turkey. But stop motion by Phil Tippett, for God's sake. Like, it had stop motion creatures. So, like, is it a good movie? No. Is it the best movie about a talking duck from another planet stuck here on Earth trying to find a way home? Thus far, yes. So that's how I feel
because it's the one.
Because it's the only one. Yeah.
That's right.
I don't think it's as bad as what people say it is. It is very disjointed. It feels like they were just throwing stuff to see what would stick. But yeah,
there you go. Until he has to rob the Oshkosh Pigosh.
That's right.
Oshkosh Pigosh.
For me, that's my favorite scene in the whole movie, is the scene in the unemployment office. I think that's the best scene in the whole movie. And
that lady should have come back at the end.
Yeah.
It's followed by that gross scene, though, at the hot tub place. That is the creepiest scene.
Why did they put that scene in the movie? I didn't understand.
Because it's a shitty job. I imagine it's a terrible job, but you know.
In my mind, movies should be 90 minutes. And anytime a movie is going to go over 90 minutes, which, by the way, this one was like an hour 50, you better justify that to me and make that worth my while. I don't know that this movie does that thing. I enjoyed the first hour, although I will take it. Everybody loves Duckburg. Woo. I didn't like that part because I liked my Howard the Duck just being dropped in, and he complains about how he's not home and he wants to go home, but you never know what his home looks like. There was a certain mystique to that was part of the charm. Whenever I saw all this duck stuff, I'm like, that's weird. I'll stick with Leah Thompson too. But I do think everybody was unusually violent and aggressive. By the time you get to the back half of the movie with the Dark Overlord, like, the special effects become, fireworks blast. Just so much of that I was like, I want this to not be what it is. And like the last 50 minutes were a real slog for me. There was not enough Leah Thompson being charming, and not enough of her rock band, and not enough of the human elements. And like, as a character, there's a heart to Howard the Duck that I felt was missing here. He's that grouchy, grumbly guy, but at the end of the day, there's an integrity there that I don't know if I saw in the movie Howard the Duck. Everything felt flat and empty, as opposed to the Howard the Duck comic, which I imagine to be like, this is like the hipster restaurant in the 70s, where it's like, all the really cool kids are going here and trying this stuff. And it's, a little bit like McDonald's, but they change this about it and make it weird and interesting. And this movie was just McDonald's. And then at the end, it was like McDonald's from yesterday. Oh, God. Why is this my life? Oh.
Not as good.
I will say that I started watching the ultralight chase, and I found myself fast forwarding some of it. I can only watch Tim Robbins hang off the side of an ultralight for so long. It was just too long.
And I love Tim Robbins. I love Tim Robbins so much. The Hudsucker Proxy is my favorite movie in the world. I recognized it was young Tim Robbins, and he wasn't Tim Robbins yet, but a lot of potential there.
Yeah, he was a Timlet.
There is an elephant in the room, though, before we get to ratings, that I want to throw out there to everybody. Again, Howard the Duck is viewed as one of the worst movies ever made. Now, I don't know if it's because George Lucas at the time should have been making better movies because it was right after Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and it's like that's the same production company, so this should have been better, right? Or the fact that it lost all this money, it's got that John Carter effect, regardless of whether it has fans or not, because it lost so much money, it's a terrible movie. But I want to ask, is it one of the worst movies ever made. I don't personally think it is. I don't think it's anywhere near some of the worst movies ever made. I think that it gets a lot of hate unnecessarily. J.A., worst movie ever made?
I don't think it's the worst.
As he breathes in through his teeth.
It's better than Ishtar. I'm sort of putting it on the same level as Highlander 2, The Quickening.
Wow! You hate that movie.
Or the original Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, that was bad.
That was bad. Yeah.
But it doesn't quite rise to like Showgirls level. Showgirls is better than this.
But maybe Showgirls on TV where they superimpose brassieres on all the actresses so they can show it on USA or whatever.
It's in there. It's not the worst, but it's not great.
So the thing that bums me out when I watch a movie is if it's wasted potential. And like with the pedigree, you think it would be better. But at the same time, the plot follows an actual course. It goes from point A to point B to point C. So there's no like, what the hell is happening here? Or why is this? All the exposition is there. They tell you what everything is. They tell you what's going on there. So I don't know if it's one of the. I've seen some bad movies. Like, is it one of the worst comic adaptations? I don't even think so. I think it's better than Steel.
And Ant-Man 3, by the way.
Why do people not like that? Like, what? I don't understand.
The Quantumania?
Like, it's fine.
No,
it's fine.
No, it's not. No, it's
That's
not.
a whole different show. We're not.
We're going to put you in this craptacular 3D movie and waste you and waste Bill Murray and waste everything about it for this setup that's not even ever going to go anywhere or pay off.
So what did Howard the Duck do better than Quantumania then? Because you said you just made the case that Quantumania is worse than this movie. So what did Howard the Duck do better?
I think Mikey is right in the fact that Howard the Duck is a coherent movie. It's not a good movie. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just kind of boring. I don't get the hate on the Duck. I realize it's different than the Howard the Duck from the comics. The puppeteering or, that all looked fine. I enjoyed that for the most part. My big thing about the special effects were just the over-reliance on them in the back half. It's not Madam Web or Kraven the Hunter or there are lots of worse movies out there.
I see. Well, let's get to our rating. We're going to see whether or not any of this conversation equates to an actual rating. So, Jay Scott, what do we got for the rating for the Howard the Duck movie?
1 out of 4 duck breasts.
4? They have 4?
At least it wasn't corkscrew.
Now I understand what you're talking about with the corkscrews. Okay, listeners are just going to have to Google it themselves.
Yeah. Bev would have been in for a surprise.
Bev was down to party. She was okay with everything that was going on here. From the second scene when she goes through his wallet. Like, it was just like, Bev's
I'm
there.
not going to judge Bev.
I'm not. Right. No kink shaming here. I'm going to start off with my rating. Because, again, this was the first time I ever saw this movie. I had heard terrible, terrible, awful things about it, and none of that was particularly true. I've seen a lot worse movies. And to Mikey's point, a lot more movies that were completely incoherent, that didn't make any sense. Was it as good as the source material? No, but it wasn't terrible. To Chad's point, it was boring towards the end. It could have used some additional editing. That's never been a particularly strong suit of any Lucasfilm, was to know when is enough and cut that and leave that on the table. And I think this one suffered from that too. But Leah Thompson, oh boy, she's cute and she's a great leading lady in this particular movie. So I would have watched Leah Thompson eat toast for 2 hours, to be honest, and still thought it was a perfectly good movie. So I'm going to give it a 2. I think there are better Marvel movies. I think there are a lot worse Marvel movies. And this seemed to not be like the cookie cutter Marvel movies that we sometimes get. Although it had the interdimensional hijinks, which has become now commonplace. But it's an average movie. Watch it. Mikey.
Originally, when I came in before we started recording, I said that I liked the movie more than I liked the comics. And now that I've talked to you guys, I think I've changed my stance on that a little bit. I think my love of all things 80s clouded my vision a bit. Like, I like knowing Thomas Dolby wrote the music, even though the music wasn't good Thomas Dolby music, but some of it was good. But no, I mean, I'm going to give it like a 1.5, maybe. Would I recommend anybody watch it? Not really, but probably. Like, I'd be like, oh, you want to see something that might waste your time? Watch Howard the Duck. You might like it for some weird reason. I like Howard the Duck for some weird reason. But now I want to kind of look into it more. Because I know there was a magazine, too, in 79, and there were other stuff, too. So you guys having me read the comics and watch the movie kind of made me kind of like both of them a little bit more, if that makes sense.
All right. J.A.
Well, duck meat is usually quite fatty, so you shouldn't have too much of it. It's a 1. And most of that is for the stuff that I enjoyed the most, which was the Duck World bits. And Leah Thompson, always great to see her in her younger days, not playing against type, but not really playing with type. She was just very sort of a Leah Thompson character. That's what the thing I was like, I'm watching Leah Thompson, not Beverly. She definitely wasn't the Beverly from the books. It was a bit of a slog towards the end. I had to pause it a couple times and go do other stuff and kind of free my mind from the drudgery that was the movie. I can see why it won so many golden raspberries. But at the same time, I can also see why it's a cult hit. It's not quite as good as Flash Gordon, but it's sort of up there in the sort of that realm of comic book movie, I guess. It didn't take itself too seriously, at least. On that, it was nice. Yeah. Though it could have been a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, and I think that third act would have been a little bit more interesting. Thanks.
Tongue-in-beak. It could have been more tongue-in-beak.
Yes.
Oh, is that another weird sex thing? There are lots of weird sex things in this movie.
Yes, there are.
Chad, wrap us up.
All right, I'm going to go somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go a 1.75. This is almost like the anti-Ant-Man Quantumania for me, where I will give it credit for the parts where I saw potential. The fact that they cast Leah Thompson, the fact they cast Tim Robbins in his first movie role. And like he had talked about how he was so excited to get this paycheck. And then they went over and he got overtime pay. It's like, yes! And so anything that supports Tim Robbins, like, he's a super interesting dude to me. And like for the first Marvel movie, they didn't go with a character that you might expect. And so for all that, there was lots of potential there. I just think in the execution, it was lacking that heart. It was lacking that integrity. It was the thing where so often they're like, we're going to make these really great special effects, but we're going to forget about the more important part of the story, which is the story.
All right. Well, we've got recommendations to wrap up this week's show, and that'll be coming up right after this commercial break. So stay tuned for more Last Comic Shop right after this.
Bonjour, this is Geeky Old Hog, and I've got a nice little YouTube channel where I review the latest comics and occasionally bang on about the old ones. Why should you bother? I hear you cry. Well, I'm a published writer of comics. I had 6 shops back in the day, and I've been a collector for 50 years. Yeah, that's why there's an O and an L in the middle of Geeky and Hog. I'm clever like that. So, if you fancy it, reviewing the new ones weekly and then looking at artists and stuff, on the side, as the actress said to the bishop, everyone is welcome. Geeky Old Hog. All one word, over on YouTube.
All right, we're back with more Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for recommendations. That time of every single show where we give you other comic books in addition to the Howard the Duck issues that we covered earlier on in the show, which you can get either in single issues, although issue 1 is fairly pricey. It's not the first appearance of Howard the Duck, but it runs you a pretty penny. But the other ones I found in dollar bins. Plus, as J.A. pointed out, it's in a trade paperback and the 300th Marvel Masterwork. So make sure you're picking up those in addition to these other comic books. And we're going to start off with Chad Smith. So, Chad, what do we got this week?
Okay, so I don't know if you guys remember, way back on our Transformers show, we talked about how great the new Skybound Transformers is. Once I was done, I was like, man, but I like that G.I. Joe book better. I'm gonna follow up with one of the next storylines from G.I. Joe. It has all the violence, the drama, the intrigue, the double crosses, the grape soda, everything you want out of a G.I. Joe story. It was recently in issues 13 through 17 the Dreadnought War. And this is why I love G.I. Joe, and I think Skybound is doing a killer job with it. It starts with Destro turning on Cobra Commander. He wants control of Cobra, as Destro always does. And so Ripper draws Cobra Commander out into the desert with the promise of finding Energon, which also happens to draw Duke from G.I. Joe, by the way. And then Ripper starts the double cross. But then Duke rescues Cobra Commander. And then the Dreadnoughts show up, and they start chasing them both. And then Duke and Cobra Commander run straight into Road Pig, who goes full-on Texas Chainsaw Massacre with those guys until the Dreadnoughts show up. Where Road Pig and the Dreadnoughts both love grape soda. So now he's a Dreadnought. And then Destro learns he still needs Cobra Commander for stuff, so he can't let G.I. Joe have him, so he sends out Cobra to get him. But Joes, they know they need Duke, so they set out to get him. But Cobra Commander has convinced the Dreadnoughts to be independent contractors for him and Cobra, so now it's up to the Joes to rescue the Cobra Commander with the Dreadnoughts until Cobra shows up to rescue them both. But the Joes have a Transformer on their team, but the Knots have Zartan embedded in the G.I. Joes. But Destro is still plotting against Cobra Commander, and it's all happening all at once in this one story, and it's the best.
Off the chain. Off the chain. This episode. I gotta check it out.
Go to bed.
You made me excited. I gotta read these issues of G.I. Joe now. My recommendation is nowhere near as exciting, but I think it's a book that people should read, especially with the new Superman movie that will be coming out eventually, because I'm pretty sure this guy's the bad guy. Everybody should check out Action Comics 242. Mikey, what happens in Action Comics 242?
Is that Brainiac? That's first Brainiac.
That's the first Brainiac.
Yes,
That's
I did
right.
know that.
It is the Super Duel in Space. It's in a wide variety of collections. I read it in a really great one that I've been enjoying as a book before bed called Superman in the 50s, which collects a lot of the classic, I guess it would be Silver Age, early Silver Age adventures of Superman, still when he has like every single power under the sun. Plot's pretty basic. Brainiac, who's not even a thing, he's not like who we think is one of the main Superman baddies. He just shows up, and he's just kind of like a villain of the month here. But he comes to Earth, and he decides to shrink like Paris and Rome and a bunch of other cities, kind of like what he did with Kandor. And so you also get, I think, the first appearance of Kandor in this particular issue as well. But Brainiac has a pet monkey that hangs out with him, shrugs. It's goofy. It's Silver Age Superman, and so it may not be for everybody's taste, but I will say, as somebody that tries to teach about comic books, you should go back and read these original stories. I think the art's kind of cool, and they're still fun. It's fluff, but it's fun. What else do you want when we're getting close to the summertime? Read it by the pool. You'll enjoy it. It's one issue. Done.
Since we spoke today about a world where things are different because of something, it made me think about Elseworlds, where that was basically the whole shtick. Like, what if? It's DC's What If. Just better.
And no watcher sitting around.
That's right. No watcher. Idiot. Just us. We're the watcher. Yeah. I chose Batman Holy Terror, which came out in 1991, the year I graduated high school, and it is written by Alan Brennert with art by Norm Brayfogle, who is probably on my Mount Rushmore of Batman artists. I love Norm Brayfogle's work. Oh my God, right? On Detective or whatever. And what it is, it presents this alternate history where in 1658, Oliver Cromwell survived, and they consolidated the Protectorate of England and the theocracies, and that all affected the North America. So basically, the United States is sort of this place controlled by the church, and Bruce Wayne is born into this world, and he is planning to join the clergy and these other and things happen, and he ends up becoming Batman, and things are different, and it's just I don't want to say too much about it, because read it yourself, man. Come on, I'm not going to do everything for you. But it's real good. Holy Terror, not the Frank Miller book Holy Terror. Do not recommend that book.
That one's different. Do not recommend. Yeah.
This is Batman Holy Terror. So,
all right, J.A., wrap us up here.
I'm going to recommend the new series out now, so you can probably still pick up issues 1 and 2 and possibly 3 by now. Moonstar by Ashley Allen and Eduardo Aldino. This is, of course, the new series that follows Danny Moonstar, Mirage in some circles. She used to be a Valkyrie, so she's got sort of that connection to Norse mythology and the Norse gods. For something that happened in the Thor book, you get the old classic Stan Lee editor's note in the corner. If you want to know why no one remembers who the Asgardians are, see Thor issue so-and-so. So no one on Earth knows that the Asgardians existed. And Danny's parents, when she says that she used to be living with the Asgardians and Valkyrie, they just kind of go, okay, yeah, okay. We still love you. That's okay, girl. Well, we don't believe you, but because everything you're saying doesn't exist in our minds because we've magically forgotten that this happened. Anyways, the story is she's trying to find her way in life after the fall of Krakoa. She joined this Society of the Eternal Dawn, which is a mystical organization designed to prevent disasters. And then they turned out to be led by an evil cult person, and magic came in, and magic and her helped end this Society of Eternal Dawn. Now she's kind of lost. She doesn't know what to do. And at the same time, as what happens in comic books, there is this soul-destroying sword that the dwarves of Nidavellir made, because, I don't know, this one is a weapon that once it's taken out of its sheath, it needs to kill a man before it can be resheathed. And it can never break, and the cuts that it imposes on people will never heal. So, yeah, not the greatest sword. I don't know what they were thinking when they made this one. But anyways, this sword, through the ages, fell to a Valkyrie, and then she died, and she cursed the sword. Now it can raise the dead, and it's being wielded by this sort of semi-Norse god guy who's pissed off that no one remembers who the Asgardians are, and is trying to bring sort of that death to Earth. So I'm interested to see where the series is going. As I said, it's by Ashley Allen. She did the Magic series that ran last year, and she's also writing the current Magic and Colossus series. So maybe we'll get some more crossover. Anytime you're combining Marvel mutants with mysticism and now also Asgardian stuff, I just love it. So I recommend it. Moonstar.
Okay. Well, we're hoping that you stick around for more movie mayhem. We've got 2 more weeks of this shindig with Snowpiercer and then Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. So make sure that you're checking us out over at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. You can rate, review, and subscribe to The Last Comic Shop on any of that myriad of podcasting platforms so you don't miss not only those particular movie reviews, but the comic books that we have paired with them. Snowpiercer, it's the Snowpiercer comic. But Batman, oh boy, we've got volume 2 of most downloaded episode of 2025, and that is Meatball Batman. So we get the knock, as well as where he rips the teeth out of his face and all kinds of really great stuff coming at you from Absolute Batman Volume 2. So again, rate, review, and subscribe so you can be part of all that awesomeness to come.
And don't forget, while we might be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we don't want to actually be the Last Comic Shop. So get out there to your LCS, see if you can find some Howard the Duck issues, or look for things that we recommended like G.I. Joe, The Dreadnought War, or Batman, Holy Terror, or turn around and look at those new release shelves for issues of Moonstar. As well as maybe you got to go back into the back issue bins. Maybe you're going to look on the wall for this one. Action Comics 242, or some of the other spots Andy told you where that might be. But all that and more potentially waits for you at your local comic shop. So make sure you go there and then check us out online, whether it's on the socials at Last Comic Shop Podcast or our website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where you can find links to the socials and links to what else, J.A.?
Link to our merch store where you can get t-shirts, coffee mugs, tote bags, hats, shorts. No non-short because Disney came after us. So if you're gonna get a shirt, you gotta get shorts with it. You can't go pantsless.
That's right. They traditionally frown upon that in modern day society, walking around with no pants. I've been thrown out of many TGI Fridays because of that particular problem.
Yikes.
Applebee's, they're more forgiving.
Thank God I wasn't looking. My eyes.
Any case, one place I'm never thrown out of is BCW Supplies when it comes to at least using a promo code LCSPOD at checkout when I want to save on my comic book supplies, because it's good for anything. It's good for everybody. You can use it. In fact, I highly recommend that you do. Go out to BCW Supplies today, use the promo code LCSPOD, save yourself 10% on all of those comic book and collectible supplies so that you can keep your stuff looking fresh. And a little bit of that comes back to the Last Comic Shop so that we can continue to talk to you about this stuff that you seem to care about because you keep listening to our show. LCSPOD at checkout over at BCW Supplies. Until next week, I was the host of Most Daily Larson. I was joined by Jay Scott and Chad Smith, as well as the wonderful Mikey Wood. And we hope that you continue to watch movies. Yeah! Watch movies, read comic books, because that's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. Stay safe.
Stay the hell out of the Howard the Duck movie. Make better choices. We can review good ones.
Can we? I feel like a lot of people like the episodes about the dogs. That's just my opinion.
These were ducks, not dogs. That's the wrong animal.
Comic Shop Podcast was a 2026 Black Angus production.